I'm going to have to go fast. What? A nightmare.
Hey, welcome to Wednesday Night Live. Good to have you back in our living room. I feel like it's been a crazy week.
It has been.
Lots of stuff.
It has been.
Lots of work, lots of kid stuff, lots of conversations.
Lots of stuff. It's really felt... I actually forgot today was Wednesday. I was thinking today was Tuesday, so that goes to tell you.
I talked to somebody this morning that thought today was Friday.
Oh.
It's like, oh, we got like half a week left. So. Wouldn't that be a nice surprise?
No. If I thought it was Friday.
Yeah, you got like next 3 days to do all the stuff
done.
you need to do.
I guess.
Nice. Like discovered time. It's like when you thought it was your 39th birthday, but it was only your 38th birthday.
Okay.
I'm young. I got a whole new year.
But why did I think it was my 39th birthday?
Somebody might have told me.
Somebody might have told me that was my 39th birthday. I was like, oh, wow. Oh,
so,
okay.
oh, what are you going to do for your 39th birthday? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Lasted a few days.
It's true. It lasted longer than it should have. Apparently, I'm so bad at math, I can't even calculate my own age. But I guess that's true. I did feel much younger when I found out.
So it's kind of like thinking it's Friday and finding out it's only Wednesday.
I guess.
That's what I thought. So, humility.
Totally unrelated.
It's not talking about the fountain of youth and how to get a year extra.
No. Maybe we should do one like that.
If you got the answers, we'll give them out.
I guess. I don't think I have the answers. We talked about humility. Humility, it's not what you think. Dun, dun, dun.
What did you think?
I don't know.
Oh.
I think one of the things about humility is that it's a really hard thing for us to evaluate in ourselves. We're not very good in, like, self-reflection. Often we're like, oh, I've totally got this humility thing down. I'm pretty much the best at being humble. But I do think that we think that we're better than we actually are. It's a really hard thing to evaluate in ourselves. But we're also really good at knowing when people are not humble. Other people. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we don't... Sometimes it's hard to know what it looks like to be humble, but it's pretty easy to know what it looks like when someone's not humble.
Does it think about somebody that you know that's arrogant? Would arrogant be the opposite of humility?
Yeah, I guess so.
Think about someone you know that's arrogant and be the opposite of that?
I guess. That
Kind
could
of.
work. Anyways, Philippians 2 verse 3 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. So basically, there's really no other way to interpret this, but like, do nothing. Out of selfish ambition, nothing. Don't do anything in pride. It's about living your life in humility, and what that looks like is valuing other people above yourself.
So if I talk about myself a lot and my own ideas, does that mean that I'm not humble?
Yeah. I was going to go there. Were you asking, like, facetiously? Oh.
I'm not sure.
Oh my goodness. We were so not ready for Wednesday. Anyways, yes, Proverbs 18:2 actually says, fools delight in airing their own opinions. That's talking about yourself, I think. That's always being the one in the conversation. Talk about your own stuff, your own opinions. So, I mean, that seems like it's not a very humble thing to do. I don't know why you keep staring at me like that.
Because you're talking, I'm paying attention to you.
So.
Isn't that good? Communication skills?
Yeah,
I want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. As long as you don't yawn. No, he will because I said
I
it.
have coffee.
Okay. So if you struggle with discontentment or pride, the solution is clear. Become more focused on other people rather than on yourself.
That's good advice. You should do that.
One thing that I think we get kind of caught up with is that Humility is not actually thinking less of yourself. It's not, Oh, here, a quote from Rick Warren. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking less. It's thinking thinking of yourself less. So sometimes we think that maybe if we want to be humble, then, we have to be self-deprecating or talk down about ourselves, or we can't celebrate things in our lives that have gone well. Or like someone says, oh, you did a really great job. And you're like, no, oh. Like we think that's
annoying.
Oh, it's so annoying. It's a whole nother story. It really is. But because that's not what, it doesn't mean you're humble if you're doing that.
You just spend less time thinking about it. It could be that you spend less time thinking about how terrible you are, because reality is that's probably a lot more of your conversation about yourself than how amazing you are. It just means you think less about yourself, whatever it is that you think about yourself.
I guess. Being humble doesn't mean that you question or deny your worth and your value. And then one of the quotes that really stood out to me this week was, just because God has called you to a humble life doesn't mean he's called you to a small life. Being humble is being confident in who you are and recognizing that you were created uniquely by a God who loves you deeply. You matter to him. And remembering that is the same thing that's true for everybody that you come into contact with. And that's where humility comes from. It's recognizing you have value, that you are unique, that you are chosen and called with a purpose. And so was that person that you maybe think is wrong, or that you maybe don't like, or that's maybe different. They were too. And I think that's where humility really comes in when we're interacting with one another. Humility goes hand in hand with empathy, which there's an example in there too about empathy versus sympathy. So imagine someone's drowning. Sympathy tosses the drowning person a life raft, and empathy jumps in the water with the raft and carries the drowning person to safety. So when you practice humility, you find yourself basically jumping in the water. So you jump in to help others without thinking, because that person is incredibly important to you, but especially that person is incredibly important to Jesus.
It's feeling what somebody else feels. That's the getting in the water with them. They're cold and frozen and wet. And go feel that with them and walk it out, get them out of there.
1 Peter 4 verse 10 says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So, imagine what the world would look like, if Christians especially, but if all of us took this command to heart, that we serve one another with whatever gifts God's put into our hearts, humbly and in love. Galatians 5:13 says that is basically everything that fulfills the law of loving your neighbor as yourself. It's loving people, serving one another humbly in love. Unfortunately, too often, we choose a different path that puts us ahead of someone else, or that sees that if we put somebody else up, then it puts us down. And so we tend to stay away from encouraging and uplifting other people. And that's just a lie to destroy you, right? Humility is, we talked about on Sunday, humility gives you so many things, riches and honor and victory, and that God exalts you to the highest place and gives you all of the glories on earth, right? And those kinds of things are taken from us when we don't live humbly. And humility can be hard because we live in this world that feels like, I have to claw my way to the top, right? I got to be better. And the best way to get to the top is to push everybody else down underneath me.
Right. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Did you just yawn?
I stifled it.
Seriously, man. C.S. Lewis wrote, pride is a spiritual cancer. It eats up the very possibility of love or contentment or even common sense. Too often, it's pride that keeps us from forgiveness, it keeps us from real relationships, it keeps us from love. And so the goal is to love people the way that Jesus loved us, right? How he humbly came as a servant. And that's kind of what he's asked us to do.
Exactly what he's asked us to do. Give up everything. Let your life not be your own.
Yeah. It's not an easy lesson to learn, but there are so many amazing blessings when we're living in lives of humility. We get a million opportunities every day Let me just say, that is my experience, that there is a lot of opportunity to live a humble life. There's a lot of opportunity to live a prideful life. A lot of opportunity to push yourself ahead of someone else, to ignore the needs of other people, to care for yourself instead of somebody else. And that stuff that's not the path you want to go down, because freedom and love and joy and all the amazing things come when we put other people ahead of us, when we love others the way that Jesus asks us to.
It's simple, but it's not easy to actually do in regular, because you've got frustrating people and your own stuff going on and your own thoughts. I've got to put some of that aside. Jesus, I need your help. Holy Spirit, help me to walk this out. Humility is one of those things that we can grow in as we become like Jesus, as we spend time in his word, as we spend time being filled by the Holy Spirit and walking out the way he calls us to live.
Yeah. Being humble doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't mean that you have to be quiet or that you're less worthy or you have less value. But humility actually makes you bolder and wiser and a much more attractive person to be around.
So loud, extroverted people can be humble too?
Yes.
They don't have to change and be introverted and quiet?
No.
Good news for some of you.
Yeah. In every situation and every day, the goal is always to just choose the next right thing. And so God has called us to be humble. And it's not like you're just going to decide to, like, oh yeah, that's good, I'm going to be humble. And then you wake up tomorrow morning and all of a sudden you're humble. That's not how it works, because it's a practice. It's like everything in our lives. We get better at it as we practice at it, and we use opportunities to practice our humility. So maybe that means the next time someone comes to talk to you, instead of waiting for your chance in the conversation to jump in with your own opinion, it's giving them more time or asking questions or probing about their situation and their story and what's happening with them. Maybe it's sacrificing something for yourself so that somebody else can have something, that you give them something. Like, there's so many ways that you can lay down your life for another person. And all it really is looking in every situation at what thing you can do. What's the next thing? What's the one thing that God is asking you to do in that next thing, to show humility and to practice humility by loving other people.
Word.
That's kind of all I got.
Jesus, help us to live that way. God, I know it's not always easy, but I pray that you would help us to think less about ourselves. God, we can think great things about ourselves because we're chosen and loved and created by you on purpose, for a purpose. But we don't have to think about ourselves lots. You've got an amazing mission in front of each one of us. You've got people around us to love. God, I pray that you would help us to put our focus on them. And as we do that, we'd be filled by your Holy Spirit. Your blessing would flow over in our lives so that we can be a blessing to the people around us. So Jesus, help us to grow in and walk in humility. In your name we pray. Amen.
You are a unique and amazing person who's created with a purpose, and is every single person that is around you. And so our encouragement would be, don't devalue yourself and don't devalue the people around us, because that's not God's intention. That's not his purpose, his joy, or his heart for any of his people.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining in tonight. I love you all. Be blessed.
Bye. Yeah.